Hello, guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing part 207 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights. We're going to look at some of the wonderful mods people are making and use them to talk about some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. So today, if you guys like squirrels, we've got 5 different species of squirrels. So if you like squirrels, you're in for a real treat today. But we've also got a couple other animals. Most of them are North American or European. We do have an extinct animal as well. So can't go anything wrong with that. Great Cakes has got to make an appearance somewhere in a mod showcase at the moment, so that's her appearance. So let's have a little looky loo at our first animal. This is done by Leaf because Leaf's been spearheading the squirrels, and just Leaf this one we have got the fox squirrel. So let's have a look at these guys. Let's see if we can find the normal one. There we are. This is the fox squirrel. Securus niger, also called the eastern fox squirrel or the Bryant's fox squirrel. These guys are the largest species of tree squirrel actually found in North America. They typically, total length is about 20 to 30 inches, or about 50 to 76 centimeters, with a body length of about 10 to 15 inches, or about 25 to 38 centimeters, with a similar tail length. They usually weigh between 1 to 2.5 pounds, or 453 to 1,134 grams. And there is no sexual dimorphism in appearance, though they too tend to be a bit smaller in the west of their range, and there tends to be 3 distinct geographical morphs in coloration. So in most areas, they typically look more like this, kind of like a brownish yellow or brown grey up a bit with a brownish orange underbelly. While eastern regions, they can have more striking patterns that are dark brown and black, with white bands on their face. And in southern parts, they tend to have just uniform black coats. So that's interesting as well. And really interesting as well, they have sharp claws to help with climbing, and they've developed extenders on their digits and flexors on their forearm and abdominal musculature. And they also have excellent vision and a well developed sense of hearing. And they also use scent marking to communicate with other fox squirrels, which is quite cool. And they've got very sensitive visceral whiskers as well. So that's quite cool. In terms of their range, their natural range extends through most of the eastern US, north into the southern prairies of Canada, as well as Dakotas, Colorado, Texas, and northern parts of the Coahuila, Nuevo Leon, and Dentalapulas, though they are absent in New England and New Jersey and most of New York. They have been also introduced into California, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Washington, and New Mexico, as well as Ontario and British Columbia in Canada. And while they're very versatile in their habitats, these guys tend to prefer open found forest patches of 40 hectares or less, and with an open understory or an urban neighborhood with trees. And they typically thrive in oak, hickory, walnut, pecan, and pine trees, which they store their nuts for the winter. And western ranges extensions in the Great Plains, such as Kansas, also found them living with cottonwood as well. So that's quite cool. So as I mentioned, they are most abundant in open forest strains with little understory vegetation. And ideal habitats are small strands of large trees interspersed with agricultural land. And the space and sizing of pine oak trees among the important features, but the actual size is actually not the contributor. It's more like kind of how much food they can get out of them. They do have two types of shelters. They have leaf shelters, or called drays, or tree dens. They may have 2 tree cavity homes and a tree cavity and a leaf nest, and they tend to tree dens are preferred over leaf nests in the winter, and for raising young. But when they're scarce, leaf nests will be used year round. Leaf nests are also built during the summer months in forks of deciduous trees at about 30 feet or 9 meters above the ground. As well, so that's quite interesting too. And they may also make a den open in a tree, in a hollow tree, but they generally use the natural cavities created by northern flickers or red-headed woodpeckers as well. And they use these leaf nests or tree cavities for sheltering and rearing litters. These forest strands are dominated by typically mature or over-mature trees that provide the cavities that they need, which is interesting as well. In terms of invasive species, they have been introduced into Europe, and it's illegal to kind of have them in there. But more about their similar ecology, things like that, a little bit more to learn about them. They are strictly diurnal, non-territorial, and spend most of their time on the ground. More time on the ground than other species of tree squirrel, which is kind of ironic. They still are agile climbers, however, and they construct, as I mentioned, the drays depending on the breeding season. The summer drays are often a little more than platforms, but the winter ones usually in a hollow tree. Fox squirrels, like other squirrels, will cache food for later consumption, and they store food that are shelled or high in fat, such as acorns and nuts. And these shelter foods are actually favoured because they're less likely to spoil than non-shelled food, and fatty foods are valuable because of their high energy density. Fox squirrels themselves are not particularly gregarious or playful, but they have been described as solitary or asocial creatures. They typically only come together breeding season. They do have a large vocabulary, though. They can make lots of clucking noises and sounds. They're not too unsimilar to game birds, which is interesting. And they warn of approaching threats with distress streams as well. And in the spring and autumn, they actually have been seen in groups clucking and chucking together to make a small ruckus, which is quite interesting as well. They're also quite impressive jumpers. They easily span 15 feet in horizontal leaps and free falling 20 feet or more to a soft landing on a tree limb or tree trunk. And they also, when they're threatened, they will stand upright with their tail over their back and flick it. So that's kind of how they use it as a threat display. Let's have a look at someone else. Hope we get a chance. Have a look at you there. That's a little juvenile. Doesn't look much different from the parents, but we'll have a look at the juvenile. In terms of their diet generally greatly depends on their geographic location. In general, though, they'll feed on mast, tree buds, insects, tubers, bulbs, roots, birds, eggs, pine nuts, and spring fruiting trees, and also fungi. And agricultural crops, they will eat corn, soybeans, oat, wheat, and also fruit. And mast eaten by fox squirrels commonly include like the turkey oak, southern red oak, the blackjack oak, the bluejack oak, the post oak, and the live oak. In Illinois, they will eat a lot of peccaries, and during the winter, they'll often eat like oranges, even seeds from the Kentucky coffee tree and honey locust trees. So they eat a lot. They have a very varied diet depending on where they are and what time of year. So they also will eat blackberries as well and tree bark and things like that, which is quite cool. In terms of reproduction, female fox squirrels will come into estrus in mid-December or early January, and then again in June. They normally produce about 2 litters a year. However, yearling females might only produce 1 litter. Females become sexually mature at about 10 to 11 months of age and usually produce their first litter at a year old. Gestation occurs over about 44 to 45 days, with the earliest litters appearing in late January, with most birds occurring in mid-March and July. The average litter size is about 3, but it can vary depending on the season and food conditions. Tree cavities, usually kind of hollowed out by woodpeckers, are remodeled into winter dens and used as nurseries, or these drays that are kind of mentioned as well. And like other species of tree squirrel, they actually develop quite slowly after birth. At birth, the young are blind, without fur, and helpless. Their eyes will typically open in about 4 to 5 weeks, and their ears open about 6 weeks. Then they typically are weaned from their mother at about 12 to 14 weeks, but may not be self-sustaining or self-sufficient until about 16 weeks, with juveniles usually dispersing in September, October, but they may den together or with their mother during their first winter, which is interesting as well. In terms of mortality, is this an adult? Yeah, that's an adult. That's quite cool. In terms of their mortality, they've been known to live in captivity for about 18 years, but in the wild, they typically live about 12 years for females and 8 years for males. Because of overhunting and the destruction of mature forests, many fox squirrels are endangered, at least different species at least, but overall they're doing okay. Another big cause of their population decline is mange mites, and also severe winters. They do have relatively few natural predators, but they will be taken out by bobcats, lynx, red foxes, grey foxes, red-tailed hawks, red-shouldered hawks, great horned owls, barred owls, and coyotes. Though former predators as well, there would have been wolves and cougars. Nestlings and young are actually particularly vulnerable to raccoons, opossums, rat snakes, and pine snakes. And in the states where they're not protected, they are considered a game animal, and they were considered actually a important source of meat for European settlers, and are actually still hunted over most of their range, which is kind of a bit of an issue. But yes, I mentioned many subspecies are endangered, but overall they're doing okay. Another really cool squirrel that we get to talk about. It's nice to see all these squirrels. It's nice to see them getting all that love. And we'll have a quick look at this black one here. So this is the southern population I was mentioned about. They have these pretty much all uniform black colours. Really, really cool. So next up, we've got another squirrel. This is a subspecies of squirrel. We've got the Mount Graham red squirrel. So that's a really cool one here. The Mount Graham. So the Mount Graham red squirrel, or Tamiscurus formonti grahamensis. These guys are a endangered subspecies of the southwestern red squirrel that are native to the Pinaleo Mountains of Arizona. And they are smaller than most other subspecies of the red squirrel, and they do not have the white fringe tail that is common in the species. And their diet actually consists of mixed seeds, conifer cones, and air-dried fungi, but in most regards they are pretty similar to other squirrels. So in terms of their physical appearance, they're actually generally a tiny squirrel. They get to about 8 ounces, or about 230 grams, and measure about 8 inches or 20 centimeters in length, and have about a 15 centimeter long tail. Unlike most squirrels in this species, they do not have a white fringed tail, and both females and males share similar markings, as they're typically greyish brown on the back and rusty yellow orange markings on their backside. And during the winter, there is a tuft with fur, and during the summer, they have a black lateral line is observed in these squirrels. And you're going to see they've got that little eye there as well. In terms of their behavior, they tend to behave in a manner very similar to other American red squirrel subspecies. They are diurnal but do not hibernate during the winter months and instead carry out activities in the midday sun. Mount Graham squirrels usually eat a diet of mixed seeds, conifer cones, and fungi. Historically, the the Mount Graham red squirrel inhabited about 11,750 acres of the spruce fir, mixed conifer, and ecotone zone habitats that were typically found in high elevations in the Palento Mountains. And recent data shows they occur more frequently there in the ectozone than other habitats. And when choosing a potential nesting site, they typically prefer a cool, moist area with lots of food. And drought, forest fires, and insect infections have been responsible for the decline of the squirrels in their habitat. But this squirrel actually does have a little bit of history. So these guys were actually considered extinct in the 1950s and then were rediscovered in the 1970s. After its rediscovery, it was considered threatened or endangered by the Endangered Species Act. On May 21st, 1986, it was officially recommended to be an endangered species and was listed as endangered. The Mount Graham International Observatory was controversial when it built in the squirrel's habitat. An observatory that was required to monitor the communities near the observatory to demand its construction and make sure that it didn't have any negative impacts on the populations of these red squirrels. Habitat loss is also occurring in high levels for a variety of natural and anthropogenic reasons. And in 1988, they designated most of the area as a refuge, and access is only granted with a special permit. And a lightning strike in June 7th, 2017 actually started a wildfire that could have led to the extinction of the subspecies. But in 2019, in September, the US Fish and Wildlife agreed to consider the squirrel needed further protection. So they are considering, does it need further protection? And so it's something under review. Be another really cool species here, or subspecies you could say. Definitely a distinct colour. So that's really, really cool. This one was also done by Nicholas Lionrider as well. The Leaf has pretty much done all these squirrels as well, but done them with other people. This one is Lionriders as well. So just another kind of variation. But yeah, really, really cool. Another cool one there. So let's have a look at the next one. We have got the plantain squirrel. So let's have a look at these guys. So these guys are another cool little squirrely. So these guys are also called the oriental squirrel or the tricoloured squirrel, or Caloscurus notatus. These guys are found in Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand. So, we got lots of squirrels across the world. They live in a wide range of habitats: forests, mangroves, parks, gardens, and agricultural areas. And fruit farmers actually consider them a bit of a pest. So in terms of their body, they're about 20 to 30 centimeters or 8 to 12 inches in length with a similar sized tail. They have a greyish brown colour with a chestnut belly and a black and white stripe down their side, as you can kind of see there. They are very quick and agile in the trees, able to jump a few meters between trees and really wander to the ground. And like all rodents, they have two larger and upper canines. In terms of its behavior, these guys are diurnal, and they're either solitary or found in small groups, where they will communicate through kind of shrill chirps and chattering while showing off their tails. And these high calls may be alarms responding to the presence of a predator. and different types of predators promote different calls that elicit different responses from the squirrels. With a snake alarm, causes the squirrels to kind of move towards the threatened mobbit, while if they get raptor call, means they kind of freeze and take cover. In terms of their breeding, they do breed year round, but most often in April and June. They are promiscuous with multiple males, usually about 5 to 7, competing for a female in estrus within her home range, with 2 of the 4 of the males ending up mating with her during a time, the interaction by barking and chasing one another. And after 40 days of gestation, they do get to have a cute little baby. Let's see if we can find one. It's an adult. Juvenile. So they have a cute little baby here. And the female gives birth to about 1 to 4 babies, about 2 on average, blind and hairless young that weigh about 16 grams. The mother then houses her litter in a spherical nest of twigs and leaves high up in the tree branches of the bush, and after 6 weeks, these young squirrels are able to leave the nest. So in terms of their diet, its diet mostly consists of leaves and fruit, but also will eat insects and bird eggs. They're also known to break open twigs that contain larvae and eat them. They can also eat fruits much bigger than itself, such as mangoes, jackfruits, and coconuts, probably because of their strong jaws as well. And in terms of their taxonomy, Calosquirrus actually means beautiful squirrel, and the cloth squirrel, albicans, which is the same genus, is sometimes considered subspecies, but now they're considered their own subspecies. Own species, I mean. Yeah, really, really cool. Another cool squirrel, this time from Asia. So we're going to have a look at the next squirrel. We've got the variginated squirrel, also done by Leaf. These both were done by Leaf. The variginated squirrel, so let's have a look. It's a really, really cool species here. So the variginated squirrel, or Squirrus ventigatodens, these guys are we're going back to America. These guys are found in Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, southern Mexico, Nicaragua, and Panama. And they are a common squirrel and are considered least concern. And they're also kept as pets in Germany, and they have been implicated in transmitting a Bornavirus to humans, which 3 people have died. So these squirrels are responsible for people's deaths, which is very interesting to think about. In terms of their size, they're a medium-sized squirrel. The head to body length is about 260 millimeters, or about 10 inches, with tail about the same length. They weigh about 500 grams, or 18 ounces. And there are several different subspecies that differ in appearance, and there's often considerable variation between appearances of individuals, even within the same population. But the dorsal coloration varies between dark brown to yellowish grey. The necks tend to be darker than other parts, and there is often a paler patch between the ears, and the underparts usually some shade of cinnamon. So there's a lot of variation in there, so I don't know how they define the subspecies. Its tail is long and densely bushy, and in Mexico it is black, sometimes with white tips to the hair and frosted appearance, and then in Costa Rica and Nicaragua they have a pale underside and tails. So I mentioned they have quite a wide range. They are native to Central America. Its range extending from Mexico down into Panama. Habitats are often including dry deciduous forests and evergreen forests, secondary growth and plantations, and actually considered a prop pest as well. It is mainly a lowland squirrel, but can range up to about 1,800 meters, or about 5,000 feet above sea level, or somewhat higher actually in Costa Rica. So in terms of ecology, like other squirrels, they are diurnal, and they seldom descend to the ground. They spend its night in a nest it builds, which is sometimes in the hole of the tree, or sometimes built with leaves and built in the fork of a tree, close to the trunk. They also are primarily a seed eater, but they also consume fruits, and some animal matter is in the form of nestlings or insects. They tend to avoid half-shelled seeds, but do consume acorns. And unlike other squirrels in colder climates, they do not hoard food and therefore play a little part in seed dispersal. So they don't hoard food like normal northern cold adapted squirrels do. To their status, they are considered a wide-ranging species, and there's no particular threats that there's worried about with their decline or anything, so they are considered least concern. But the Bornavirus, in 2015, there's actually a Bornavirus known as variginated squirrel Bornavirus 1. It was detected in some squirrels kept as pets in eastern Germany, and the squirrel breeders that lived in the region, also associated with each other, died over a 2-year period with a progressive endocephalus caused by a novel virus. So literally, that's really interesting. There's 3 people that have died from a random virus that was because they had kept tropical squirrel. So it's very, very interesting to think, how diseases are spread and stuff like that. But yeah, really, really cool. Another cool species. This one was done by Leaf as well. Next up, we've got another one done by Leaf and Nicholas Lion Rider. We have got the Western Grey Squirrel. So we've covered the Eastern Grey Squirrel. Now I've got the Western one. So the Western Grey Squirrel. Let's have a look at these beautiful little guys here. The Western Grey Squirrel, or Squirrus generis, is a tree squirrel found on the western coast of the US and in Mexico. They also sometimes called the California Grey Squirrel, the Silver Grey Squirrel, the Oregon Grey Squirrel, the Colombian Grey Squirrel, or the Bannertail. And there seems to be 3 genetic variations or geographical subspecies, but I'm not sure how much stock they take in them. In some landscapes, they have encountered local extinctions and also been lost habitat due to habitat destruction and competition with other squirrel species. So they were first described by George Auld in 1818, mostly with notes taken from Lewis and Clark from the Dallas and Watson County, Oregon. And these guys are actually the largest tree squirrel in the Sierra Nevada and Central Californian range. They have plantigrade feet. And compared to eastern grey squirrels or the fox squirrels, which we just mentioned, these squirrels are shy and generally run up a tree and give a hoarse chirping call when disturbed. They generally range from about 0.35 to 1 kilogram, so about 0.77 to 2.2 pounds. And the length is between 43 to 61 centimeters or 17 to 24 inches. They're the largest native tree squirrel in the western coastal US, and they exhibit a form of coloration called countershading. So you can see the top there is grey, but the bottom is white. So that's a type of countershading, though there may be black flecks in the tail. The ears are quite large, but they don't have tufts on their ears, and their ears will turn reddish-brown at the back in winter. And the tails are long and very bushy, and you can see they also kind of will be as well curved in S shape. So they do undergo a head-to-tail molt in the spring and rump-to-head molt in the fall, with tail hairs being replaced only in the spring, with nesting mothers using their tail hair to line birthing nests. And they also will eat a lot of things such as seeds, also the eggs of small birds, similar to other squirrels, as we kind of mentioned. In terms of reproduction, let's have a look at the babies here. Where are they? There they are. So the Western Grey Squirrels reach sexual maturity about 10 to 11 months of age. And approximately 1 year of age they will be breeding. They mate over an extended period of time from December through June, and young are born after about 44 days gestation, with juveniles emerging from the nest March and mid-August, with litter size ranging from 1 to 5 kits, which remain in the nest for a longer period of time than the squirrels. And they're relatively slow in development and will not leave the nest for about 6 months. Another species disadvantage when they compete with, more faster breeding species. Young grey squirrels have furred tails, which does not reach its fullness to adulthood, and it's actually a good indicator of size and maturity, age and maturity. Mother squirrels often seem to be overworked with a stressed appearance, complete with bruises and battered nipples, which is quite, I find that a little bit funny. Clearly being a mum's hard work. I'm sure all the mums would agree with that. Mating squirrels can be very physical and will bite and injure each other, and females can actually be quite territorial, not wanting to, deal with each other and kind of keep to themselves. So look at this one over here. Having a good feed there. Western grey squirrels are also forest dwellers. Time is spent on the ground foraging, but they prefer to travel distances from tree to tree. They are strictly diurnal and feed mainly on seeds and nuts, primarily pine seeds and acorns, but they also take berries for fungus and insects. And they like pine nuts and acorns because they're considered critical foods. They are very high in oil and moderately high in carbohydrates, which helps increase body fat, which keeps them warm during the winter. And when they're alert, they will spread their tails and also, spread their tails lavishly, create an umbrella effect that provides them shelter. They put their tail out to protect themselves from predators. They're also scatter hoarders. Like many other species of northern squirrels, they will make numerous food caches when abundant, and thus will actually contribute to the spreading of the trees. Although squirrels show a relatively good scent relocation ability, some food caches are never reclaimed, becoming seedlings in the spring. And then they do not hibernate, they become less active during the winter. And like many prey animals, they depend on the auditory alerts of other squirrels and birds to determine safety. And once an alarm call is transmitted, those present will join in and lead a cacophony kind of in the in the canopy and things like that. But they are prey for a lot of animals such as hawks, eagles, bobcats, cougars, coyotes, raccoons, not rancors, cats, dogs, and humans. So, in terms of the habitat and shelter, as I mentioned before, in the fox squirrels, they tend to live in drays. They can be seen in trees built from sticks and leaves wrapped around long grass. And they do have those two types of kind of nests. They have the large round covered shelters for winter use and birthing and raising young, and the second is more of a sleeping platform used for seasonal or temporary use. They'll line them with lichens and moss and shredded bark and things like that. And being arboreal, they do like to travel using trees. The western grey squirrel, as I mentioned already, has many predators, and they like to live in high and low elevations in California. They can be found in elevations up to 2,000 meters, and they are found in habitats with both walnut and black oak trees, which is cool as well. But in terms of habitat loss and competition, they are considered a threatened species, and they were actually reclassified as endangered in November 2023, with populations not recovering from past reductions as they are threatened with habitat loss, roadkill and mortality, and disease. Habitat loss is due to urbanization, overgrazing, catastrophic wildfires, and fire suppression. Along with the invasion of the Scotch-born, which is also mange, which is spread by mites, has become an epidemic within the western grey squirrel populations, and has really affected them as well. And other species have also been introduced, which compete with these squirrels, such as fox squirrels, and also wild turkey have been competing with each other as well. So there are kind of efforts, and there's some areas they have sadly become extirpated, since like in Southern California, they're generally found in the mountains as well. So that's a bit of a worry there, but there are efforts to try and help them, luckily. Yeah, really, really cool species. I believe they are considered least concern though, so there's still a lot of them around, but they don't live in quite the big range that they used to, and hopefully there are some efforts to help them, and there should be, because they're quite cool little guys. And that is all the squirrels for today. This one was also done by Line Rider as well. Got Leaf and Line Rider, the dream team. Nicholas Line Rider, we all know. Being an OG, he's definitely an OG, being like from the beginning. Same with Leaf. Next up, we've done all the squirrels. So all these 5 species of squirrels are all done now. So no more squirrels. If you guys had enough of squirrels, you can carry on and enjoy the rest of the video. If you just want to see the squirrels, you can go. But that's about it for today. Next up, we've got a skunk, also done by Leaf. Leaf pretty much dominating this mod today. We have got here the hooded skunk. In comparison to the striped skunk, which is already the one in game. That's the one you typically think of when you think of a skunk. But there is another species, the hooded skunk. This is Metrophis metrocora. These guys are in the family Mephididae, which in Latin means foul odor, and Macris is long tail, so basically long tail foul odor, which is interesting. They can be distinguished from the close relative, the striped squirrel, by its longer tail and its longer, much softer coat of fur and larger chapatic bulb. The ruffed white fur on its neck gives the animal the common name, so that's kind of where it gets its hood from. And they also, the 3 colour phases are known in all 3. The thin white medial stripe is present between the eyes, black barred with 2 lateral white lines, white barred with 1 or 2 dorsal white stripes, or tiny black with a few white hairs on the tail. So there's a bit of variety there, but this is kind of what your typical hooded squirrel looks like. So the hooded squirrel, not the hooded squirrel, skunk, can't think of squirrel. The hooded skunk ranges from southwestern United States to Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and northwestern Costa Rica, and is more abundant in Mexico. These skunks have actually found to be more than 50% smaller in southwestern Mexico than in the US, and they are found in grasslands, deserts, and in the foothills of mountains, avoiding high elevations. That's how they get kind of separated from striped squirrels. The females also, they tend to live near a water source, such as a river, and the females tend to be about 15% smaller than the males. And their breeding season is about February and March, with their litter size ranging from 3 to 8. So in terms of their diet, the hooded skunk is mostly diet is mostly full of vegetation, including prickly pear, but also consume insects, small vertebrates, fruit, bird eggs, and human garbage. Hooded skunks of Costa Rica have been known to throw bird eggs used behind their hind in order to break the eggs. In the wild, the stomachs usually have a lot of insect matter in them, with 50% of their diet being beetles, earwigs, and stink bugs. And vertebrate tissue has been found in 12% of the diet, but only 1% of plant material, with no cases of rabies actually being reported. But they host a range of parasites, including nematodes, roundworms, and fleas. So yeah, mostly kind of invertebrates and eating small animals. That's what they like to do. In terms of behavior, they are solitary, but they might interact in a feeding ground without showing any sign of aggression. They shelter in a burrow or a nest of thick plant cover during the day and are active at night. And like the striped skunk, for self-defense, they spray volatile compounds from their anal glands. So you don't want to mess with them just as much as you don't want to mess with the striped skunk. Several major compounds contain 99% of the volatiles and secretions. I'm not going to go into the names of them because there's lots of big chemical names which I don't understand. But yeah, it stinks really bad just as much as the striped skunk. And we'll look at the cute little baby as well. So in terms of the characteristics, the hooded skunk is currently not endangered. They are very abundant in Mexico and can live in human suburban areas, mostly on pastures or cultivated fields. Their fur has low economic value, however their fat and scent glands are used in local folk medicine, and actually some parts of the range are also considered a delicacy. Other common names for them is they have the French name Mafure et Capcon. They also call it the Pa, which is in Mayan, the southern skunk, the white striped skunk, and the Zorillo, which is in comparison to the striped skunk, which is the one that lives in the US. It lives in southern Canada, the US, and northern Mexico. So that's the one that you typically think of. If you're American, that's the one you think of seeing when you think of a skunk. Which is interesting as well. But yeah, another really cool one. Cool species that we get to talk about. Another great one, my Leaf. Leaf likes to do a lot of these mods that just change a little bit. Just to, give us another species and some more variation and more options. Which I quite like. But by the looks of it, we've got our last mod here today. We've got something big, big prehistoric Noto ungulates. I love talking about these guys. Let's see if the mate female there. There's the male. So here is Mixotoxodon. So there's another really interesting animal as well, which the name just means mixture toxodon. So these guys are an extinct genus of Noto ungulate from the family Toxodonidae, that lived in South America, Central America, and parts of southern North America from the Pleistocene from about 1.8 million years ago and went extinct at the end of the Pleistocene, with a lot of the other megafauna about 12,000 years ago. So this is a really, really cool animal, and actually most people, when they think of Toxodon, probably actually mean Mixotoxodon, because often in media, like Prehistoric Park and things like that, Toxodon was depicted as this huge rhino-sized animal, but Toxodon wasn't quite that large, but Mixotoxodon is, or potentially is, as we'll get into. So this guy is known from fragmentary remains, usually mandible fragments and teeth, though its general appearance was very similar to another toxodontid from the Pleistocene, the much better known Toxodon. Its fossils show that the outer borders of its symphysis of the lower jaw and then sizes kind of protrude less than Toxodon. It had a short snout, was cylindrical, and had kind of like that hippo-like muzzle of a Toxodon. Its straight snout and narrower incisors are closely packed, suggesting that they may have had a little bit of a different ecology than their southern relative, although their teeth of Bocena are actually quite well adapted for eating quite abrasive food, so they may have been more grazers. Maybe just this guy was a little bit better adapted for eating tougher plants, since they, for example. These guys were also quite large. They're believed to be about rhino-sized, about 3.8 tons. So yeah, that's definitely rhino-sized, which makes it the largest member of Noto ungulates ever known, though this may be an overestimate. And I'll quickly go into, I've talked about Noto ungulates before a few times, but Noto ungulates are basically this really cool group of South American ungulates that evolved in South America, because South America was isolated from the rest of the world right up until about the Great Biotic Interchange in the Pliocene. So Noto ungulates pretty much all exclusively lived in South America, except for this one that actually managed to make it into Central and North America. And they lived basically all through the Cenozoic and only went extinct in the last few thousand years, because we do have some Holocene Noto ungulates, which is really, really sad, because we just missed out being known by Western science. So that's really, really sad. But anyway, we'll carry on. Mixotoxodon is known from a single species, Mixotoxodon linearis, which is the only notoungulate known to have migrated out of South America during the Great American Interchange. Its fossils have been found in northern South America, and Central America has been found in Mexico, and has been found in Texas, eastern Texas. And this genus is also one of the last surviving notoungulates, along with its relative Mixotoxodon. And the name refers to it having actually characteristics that are quite an interesting mix of all the other different species of toxodontid subfamilies. So it's quite a rich group. And in terms of its cladogram, it's actually not considered that closely related to Toxodon. Its closest relatives are Paratrigodon and Trigodon. That's kind of what it's believed to be around there. And if you look at its fossils, or estimated fossils, it would have been quite a large animal, large cow, rhino-sized, is kind of that there. And it is mentioned known from quite a few different places, from Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Texas, so it had quite a wide range. But yeah, really beautiful animal, really, really cool. But yeah, it's sad that we missed out on all of these notoungulates. But yeah, really, really cool mod. I like the design of it, makes it feel really, really cool. I like the extra hairs it's got. It gives me like Sumatran rhino kind of vibes. And they did a really good job with it, Great Cakes Mods is actually one of the few people that I think make acceptable or really, really good reconstructions of prehistoric animals that we don't really have good analogs for, like the Entelodonts and things like that. Great Cakes Mods does a really awesome job reconstructing extinct mammals, so I gotta applaud it. It's up there with some of the best paleo art. And then what elevates it even more, you can actually have them watch and interact and breed in your game through mods, which is amazing. So yeah, Great Cakes Mod done a wonderful job. But yeah, I think this is about time to end it. So we're gonna zoom out and have a look. Thank everyone. So we're gonna thank you, Leaf. And Nicholas Reinrider, you did a great job with all the squirrels. Nice to talk about squirrels for, half an hour. And then we've got Leaf, who also did the Hooded Skunk as well, and also got Great Cakes Mod, who made the Mixotoxodon. So yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So if you guys enjoyed this video, hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.